What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. I'm the Martian, joined by my co-host Ozzy, and this week we're going to be analyzing the Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez card going down this Saturday. Early start time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we're back at the UFC Apex. 11 fights in the small cage. And how we doing this week, Ozzy?
Pretty well, coming off that great pay-per-view, those back-to-back pay-per-view cards, which were a lot of fun. Was able to go and be in attendance, meet a few of the guys that we chat with a little bit via Twitter and other forums, and was a really exciting card that I think we had some really good reads on, and pretty interesting card top to bottom.
Yeah, unfortunately, small loss in the bets for me. Actually, a pretty medium to large loss in track bets for me, minus 4.65 units, unfortunately. But you had a good week. What was your recap last week?
Yeah, just over 3.5 units up, which very grateful for, seeing that, I think a lot of people had a little bit of a, tougher week. Kept a little smaller, but I love the Imavov, Rose, as both as over 1.5 unit bets. Rose a 2 unit bet. Curtis, although I did like that fight to go over, I think I was a little bit more of an advocate for Curtis, and that gave me a small win on that fight, even though I lost on that over bet, or that goes distance bet. Obviously, I was on Frankie, and then that goes a distance in the Jacoby Alon fight. But just awesome run for me, what I would say, on these UFC events overall. I think up close to 40 units, more or less, since the summer where we started this, and I think this has definitely helped my handicap process overall. And I hope that people are enjoying us talking about the fights a little bit, me going in depth a little bit on how I kind of see these fights playing out, and are making money along the way, because I'm betting these fights all for real. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in these markets that I think I've expressed to you in the past. I don't know if it'll always be there and at this magnitude. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make 100 units year over year, but you got to take it this year.
Yeah, so you kind of just glanced over it there, but we started this podcast 14 UFC events ago. You're up 43 units in that amount of time, and you're not exactly going to explicitly say, I have 1 unit, 2 units on this, but I mean, you're giving your thoughts on these fights. People can take that information and do what they please with it. You're given your thoughts on the fights. You're typically picking a winner, typically saying who you like. You're just not explicitly saying, I have 2 units on this. So you got to really pay attention to what we're saying here and use that information to tail. I'm up 21 units in that time, and kind of dwell as a comparison to this guy over here making 43 fucking units. Just a crazy run. And we're hoping you're enjoying the podcast, getting some entertainment out of it, and also getting some valuable information to use in these bets.
I
So
will
with that,
say, though, I
go
will
ahead.
say what we're gonna add on at the end. I'm gonna start giving like one. We're basically gonna try and give a parlay of like two sides, whether it be a side, a total, something like that, one of each of ours, every week. And if you want to bet it as a parlay, if you want to bet it as a straight pick, be by all means. But just to give some more concrete, sides, overall. But I think I'm pretty transparent overall with everything. So, but let's get into it. I'm excited about this card. I have a lot of thoughts on it. So I think it'll be a medium length podcast today.
I agree. And just one slight note, Ozzy was experiencing a little bit of internet connection issues, so if we have some audio problems at times, I apologize, but we'll do our best to mitigate that throughout. And we're going to start things off. First fight on this card this Saturday in the light heavyweight division. We have Kennedy and Nzechukwu as the slight underdog. Jung is the favorite right now. Bet online minus 125. Jung. Kennedy coming back plus 105. We're definitely not big fans of Kennedy on this podcast. We were on Danilo Maia against him in that last fight. That was a brutal loss there. We bet Marks as an underdog. He won the first 2 rounds and then just had an all-time collapse in round 3. I'm not over that loss yet. I know Ozzy probably isn't as well. And I'm looking to get my money back this time on Jung. And Jung is a guy I bet in his last fight. He performed very well against William Knight. And I just think Jung hits harder than Kennedy. I think he's a solid boxer. He can hit takedowns and keep top position. He can do good work from top position as well, landing ground and pound. And I kind of just give him the striking power and grappling advantage over Kennedy. Kennedy's tough. He's got good cardio. He's going to hang in there even when he's losing the fight. He's proven that in his past 2 fights. He was getting demolished in both of those fights before coming back and winning them by knockout. But I just don't think that's good enough at plus 105. I mean, I think that Jung has a lot of advantages here. I think that he could possibly land a big shot and knock out Nzechukwu on the feet, or could possibly even get his wrestling going and out-grapple Kennedy here. So I'm riding with the South Korean. I think he's good value at this price. I mean, I think the market is kind of overrating Kennedy here. So I still think there's value in Jung, and I will be betting him here.
Yeah, so Kennedy for me, just a guy where just a bewildering, approach overall. Like he's just a very, very slow, incredibly slow starter. You saw even in that Darko Stosic fight, he started off super slow. I think Darko outlanded him like 3-1 in the first round, and then Kennedy was able to get back into the fight a little bit in the second round. In that Oberg fight, same thing. It looked like he was starstruck, thought that Carlos was really good looking. I don't know, but he was, doing nothing. I can't blame the guy, but was doing nothing in that first round as Carlos was teeing off on him. I mean, for the most part, he did land his shots here and there, but was just waiting too long. And the same thing happened against the Marquez, where Marquez was able to dictate the pace of the fight, especially early when he was able to get in on his hips. And then even in that second round, he was able to get in on him, on many occasions. Even though Kennedy did show better takedown defense there, but he was just giving up his back a lot. When they're at range, when Kennedy's at range, for me, it looks like to me he just thinks too much about what he wants to throw next. Does not really put together a lot of his combinations. Over the course of the fight, when he does uncork, he is throwing good punches and some solid here. That's very later. I could better put it. Where he builds some of this offense. Now, Jung, if you're looking at the data points for Jung, I think the thing that maybe scares people is that fight against what is the Russian guy's name?
Ibrahimov?
Ibrahimov.
Kadis?
Yeah, his UFC debut, where he was getting hit, plenty, was not really respecting too much of the power, and I think that kind of skews people's opinions. It did for me personally, where I had Mike Rodriguez, and Jung showed his knockout power in that fight. And then in that Alves fight, although Alves did stun him on a few occasions, Alves is a much more tricky southpaw than I think Kennedy is. I think that Jung is going to be able to find his angles for his right hand much more. And then if he does want to duck into the clinch, I think he is more solid there. He's going to be able to control it a little bit more. And I don't see just Kennedy being able to take up the space in those striking exchanges to overwhelm Jung like he did with Marquez and some of these other guys that he's fought. So I'm not really into, like, I don't want to lay too much juice on Jung. Have not done it yet either. I think you might have already been on that side, but it's a line that I'm looking at because it has come way in, a lot of Kennedy action. I think some touts on him as well. But this is a good matchup, I think, between two solid light heavyweights. But I do have to side with Jung personally.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Alvey fight. That was probably his worst look in the UFC, losing the first 2 rounds to Alvey. But his coach got in his ear. He amped him up. He said, "You're losing." And then Jung came forward and got a unanimous 10-8 round, I think, and beat Alvey up pretty badly. So even when the guy is losing fights, he knows he's losing and he comes forward and makes up for that. And, I have a hard time seeing Nzechukwu winning anyway outside of like a striking decision. There was a bit of an issue with the audio file for about 30 seconds here, so you missed the end of my Nzechukwu and Jung prediction, but I was definitely picking Jung to win that one, and I'm betting him as well there. And that's going to move us on to the next fight in the lightweight division, where we have Mark Diakiese as the minus 185 favorite, with Rafael-Alves coming back as the plus 160 underdog.
Yeah.
And crazy to think this guy was at 145 at one point too. Remember,
Yeah.
he was supposed to fight
Yes,
Sabatini.
huge guy. Coming off, he won on a Contender Series, was able to get that, I think, guillotine win over that guy Flores or
That's him.
Alejandro.
Yep.
Yeah. This is a guy, he is kind of the Yoel Romero mold. Tank of a guy. very athletic, has some, jiu-jitsu background, and has a very good guillotine choke, throws a lot of crazy kicks. I think he was out for a while before that Contender Series fight from a bad knee injury that I think he might have suffered, like celebrating one of his wins. But he's the kind of guy where, I don't love seeing a guy who's a jiu-jitsu black belt or jiu-jitsu background and he has 6 submission losses. So, of his 10 losses, he's got finished in 9 of them. And just kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it finds a way out or just finds himself in those bad positions where he ends up submitted. But in the fight against Demir, if you watch it again, I think the narrative overall was a little bit worse. After watching that fight again for him, I thought that he actually did okay in the last 2 rounds. I thought his gas was worse than what I remembered in that fight. Demir didn't really do all that much, and I think that even in that 3rd round, Alves was kind of controlling the round. He dropped him in the beginning of the 1st round, so definitely put a damper on me thinking Demir is very good. I was hoping that he wouldn't miss weight, like in that fight, so he could have fought Magomed or whatever his name is. But here against Diakiese is a weird guy. I know he's training at All Stars now with like Chimaev, Gustafsson, those guys. In that Fiziev fight, he stayed in there pretty well. It just, I think he was not ready to be as quick on the counters and coming back at Fiziev as he's used to. I think he's more used to guys like guys where he's a better athlete than he can land that calf kick, which is probably his best weapon on the feet. But if he's grappling, I think that if Alves is not like wilting, I think that he could have success here potentially. I don't really like him at this plus price just because he's kind of just unreliable. I'd probably just take him inside the distance if I liked him, even though Diakiese's only been finished 1 time. But Diakiese is a solid fighter. I can see why people would lay the juice with him. But now that it's getting close to minus 200 with a guy like Alves who's super dynamic with kicks, punches, and submissions, I can't do it myself in this spot because Diakiese, sometimes can, find himself in pretty bad trouble and dive into stuff if he is, fighting a little more wild.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you there. I think maybe the early price on DKC was playable, but now it's not. Alves is just dynamic enough and explosive enough to, I think, to just keep this fight close at all moments. I definitely agree with your assessment of the Ismagulov fight. Super underwhelming performance from Demir there. But I did notice that Alves just spends a lot of time on bottom throughout a lot of his fights. A few of his pre-UFC fights, he spent some time on bottom there. I just think he's one of those like jiu-jitsu guys who's kind of lazy with his takedown defense. But Diakiese can wrestle. He's just not known for like a good top game. So I think even if he takes him down here, he could be at risk for, getting caught in a guillotine or getting caught with some crazy submission off his back possibly. So I question whether Diakiese is actually going to grapple here. I think that if it stays standing, it will just be close based on that one big moment from Alves, that big kick or punch, that blitzing attack like he hurt Demir with early on. So I just think that Alves' athleticism and explosiveness is going to keep this fight close in some aspects, and it's going to be kind of a narrow decision win for Diakiese. So I'm not in love with laying the chalk on him at this price, and I'd probably say take a stab on maybe Alves no scorecards. What is that at? I imagine it's juice, but no, it's only minus 120. So I think that could be a play here because I just think that DKC is probably not going to finish him. But like you said, he has been finishing 9 out of 10 of his losses, so maybe not the best one. Not a fight I'm really inspired by or looking forward to. That's going to bring us along to the women's flyweight division in the next fight where we have Courtney Casey minus 235, Liana-Jojua plus 200. Jojua, a fan favorite, good looking girl, but unfortunately she can't fight. And the only thing that she has really in her arsenal is arm bars off her back. And honestly, she could still win the fight with an armbar off her back here. But seeing as Courtney Casey is a guard armbar specialist of her own right, I feel like she can, see that attack coming and be able to avoid it. And honestly, Casey's kind of decent everywhere. Like she's a decent striker who can put up volume. She can even hit takedowns and keep top position. She's a decent overall grappler. I think she's a brown belt or something like that. And, I'm just not really seeing much of a path to victory for Jojua here. I really do think the woman is pretty terrible at all aspects of MMA. And I just don't see any like reliable way for her to win the fight. Casey's got more process. She probably should have got that decision win against Aldrich. I'm pretty sure the majority of people scored that fight for Courtney Casey. So I think Casey honestly does have the potential to cover minus 235 here. So I'll be picking Casey decision. Maybe Casey submission is worth a stab at. I think plus 800. So what are your thoughts on this high level affair?
I
No,
don't
plus 500.
I don't have too much on this fight. I mean, Courtney Casey is no like. I mean, the only direction I could look is in the Jojua side. Courtney Casey's 9-9 for a reason in her UFC career. Not very urgent. Can get grappled. I don't know what her training situation is. I think she was at the MMA lab, but she's 2-7 in decisions, which is just absolutely awful. Even though that JJ fight was a little bit closer than I think. Yeah, I think a lot of people scored it for her. I thought Jojua looked a little bit better than I remembered in that Maverick fight, even though she ran into that elbow and it was like a mercy women's MMA stoppage. But I think she could be a lot better here because she has been training with a lot of girls. I see her traveling all over the place. She must have some nice money behind her because she's all over. In everybody's camp. East Coast, West Coast, down south, doesn't matter. So I'll probably outside with her if I were to bet it, but big pass for me.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that if you want to bet JoJo, you should probably just do it by submission. I can't see her doing. I mean, I get what you're saying. Casey not reliable, but I really do think she could just hit takedowns and easily cover minus 235 here. But
The
not a fight that I'll be betting.
the over is only 200 here.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think that the guard armbar is the only path to a finish early on here. But women's MMA, it's always there.
Yeah.
And that's going to move us
Sure.
along. Next fight, men's featherweight division, where we have Sean Woodson as a pretty considerable favorite. Looking for the odds here. I think there he is, minus 335, Anglin plus 275. I think this is a little wide, this line. Sean Woodson is a boxer. He really doesn't get the fight to the floor much, and he does have good output. Throws a lot of straight punches, throws some good knees up the middle. But I don't think the guy has much power behind his punches. He's beat up a few guys pretty badly before and was not able to finish them. So if Woodson is winning fights, it typically is a decision. And I just think Anglin can kind of hang in there in all aspects. I think his Contender Series fight was a good showing for him. I thought he showed good cardio, ability to hit takedowns, and implement a grappling game plan, which he's probably going to want to do here against Woodson because Woodson is the sharper striker. He probably does have some issues with the straight punches of Woodson. So Anglin's going to be looking to grapple. And I just think this guy is tough. He's gritty. He can maybe get the fight into the takedowns. But Woodson's takedown defense does, continue to improve. He stuffed a lot of Zalal's takedowns, but that was an extremely narrow 29-28 decision that Woodson won there against Zalal. And Zalal is just kind of a weaker grappler. I don't think that Anglin is much better than Zalal. I just think that he could have some of that same success where he's pushing him against the cage, maybe getting some brief takedowns. And I just think plus 275 is a little too wide here. So I'd say Anglin worth a small, half unit stab value bet on his money line. And he could make this decision pretty close. What are you thinking about this fight, Ozzy?
I think Woodson's a pretty interesting fighter. He moves, like a, very snakish. He's jabbing you, hitting you with uppercuts. Like, I love that fight against Zalal that he had where, he just showed a pretty, just pretty smart. I just thought that overall, with how he fought that fight, even after the first round, where Zalal is a very cerebral fighter. He approaches the fights, very point based, and it's hard to sometimes outpoint him. Anglin does train with Zalal. I think he does also train at Factory X. I'm not high on Anglin. Like, I don't think he's a good wrestler. I don't think he has great power on the feet, but he is, he is in good shape. He has good cardio. He has some wrestling background. And if he does get on top, I do think he can hold some positions. But I think that he is pretty reckless on the feet. If you look at that fight that he had against Naimov, I think there's just certain points in there where he just wants to just go into a full-on brawl, and I think that would be an awful decision for him against Woodson. Obviously, I can't bet Woodson at this 335 number. Maybe that minus 260 was a little bit intriguing. The over here minus 210. I don't know about that. I think that I don't know if Woodson's gonna knock out Anglin for sure, but I do think he will hurt Anglin at some point. And and probably get some top position from like Anglin either dropping or something. I just think that he's gonna clip this guy's chin, because Anglin, he's just he loses composure. If he does get hit, not looking. I think this is a guy that shouldn't be in the UFC right now. Needs more seasoning, and Woodson just a much higher level than him. But I wouldn't be surprised at seeing Anglin get a takedown, hold on to him, hold a clinch. But eventually, I do see Woodson piling on the volume and hurting Anglin, maybe to the body, and then potentially finishing him.
Really interesting. I think I think Melcy kind of just hit a good spot on the temple with that big head kick, and I thought he was kind of hanging in there pretty well with Melcy before that. So I think decision on this one. But I guess I could see it. But like you said,
Naimov hurt him. I think I don't remember. I don't have like notes of the fight,
I
but
think he
I
did
thought
in round
Naimov
one.
was winning that fight until he gassed. But whatever.
Yeah, he was losing the striking early on to name off, then started hitting some takedowns, and then took
Hudson's a
over rounds two and
slippery
three.
bastard, man. He it's just like very, very hard where you have a guy with leverage like that, against the cage and stuff. And England just I don't think he's that good of a wrestler, so I think he's gonna have a hard time here.
True, but you did bring up a good point. Factory X does train Vince Peichel, Alex Hernandez, Jonathan Martinez. Some good training partners out there. So maybe England has improved. And like I said, I still think I'll probably take a small bet on England here, especially if the price keeps going up on Woodson. That's going to bring us to the next fight, women's flyweight division, one of your most anticipated fights in the card. We have Cynthia Calvillo as the minus 138 favorite, Andrea KGB-Lee plus 118. You could start this one out.
Yeah, so somehow, although everyone was on Andrea Lee in her last fight, somehow I lost money on that fight. I don't know what was going on with me that week. I think I, I must have brain fog. But conversely, with Cynthia Calvillo, I somehow was on her against Jessica, and she totally shit the bed there. Now she's back. I think it's only been like about 5 weeks, 5, 6 weeks since that fight.
Yep.
Andrea Lee, career 125er. I think this is Jessica or Cynthia's third fight here at 125. She's one fight there, the first fight, Jessica, I missed weight, wasn't really ready. I think, that prime time main event spot, not ready for that moment, wilted under it. Cynthia Calvillo after the first round was able to get takedowns, just back her up and win that fight, 5-round fight. But then her subsequent two fights, against Chukagian, did not attempt any takedowns. Some of her punches, I don't know, just looking back at it now, I don't know what I was thinking about with that matchup with Andrade. But the thing is with Cynthia, in the matchup, let me just go more to the Andrea Lee side, because Andrea Lee, a lot of her grappling, I feel is pretty educated. She moves very well. She has some good some wrestling of her own. I would not be surprised if she was able to take down Cynthia Calvillo in her own right. I don't really see Cynthia being able to land takedowns at will here at all. Andrea Lee has a very good get up game. She has goes through really good underhooks around bottom. She's able to get up very well and wrestle up from there and finish very, very well. Both, whichever side she is on with wrestling takedowns from there. And then in the clinch, she has judo throws. She's just a very educated grappler. I can't believe I didn't have money on her against Shevchenko. She hits trips. She has the main worry is, she is a little nonchalant and she does throw a lot of kicks. And Cynthia Calvillo is one of her strengths, and one of the only ways that she gets takedowns, or primary ways, I should say, is catching these kicks and then finishing, shelving the leg, hiking it up, tripping that other leg, picking it, whatever it is. But on bottom, I just don't, or on top, I just don't think that she's going to be able to control Andrea Lee. She gives up underhooks, to hunt the neck, to go for like front headlocks, guillotines, go to the front turtle. Those underhooks will ride up, will not stay on her knees and give up the back position. And even if she does, honestly, some of her escapes, I just think this girl is really smart. I think if she gets on top of Cynthia, she's likely to hold her down. And then I think on the feet, she has, I think, a 4-inch reach advantage, 4 or 5-inch reach advantage on Cynthia. She's bigger. I think she is more diverse. I think she is more accurate. And the thing with Cynthia, some of these punches that she throws out, they just come up so short. Like she's not really, I remember when I was, training a lot, they teach you in your boxing, you got to hit through the pad. You got to hit through the person, especially when you're sparring or you're fighting, and a lot of times when Cynthia's throwing these shots, if she had a knife, instead of, a punch, like it wouldn't even stab the person. Some of these punches are so short, or they're just not thrown with enough intent and power. And I just think Andrea Lee is able to stifle her in many aspects of the fight, mix it up, and hopefully and win a decision here. So I'm kind of surprised that it's at a plus money price here. Action is also coming in on Cynthia, so I think people are seeing that she catches kicks and is probably going to be able to take Andrea Lee down, and hoping that she's going to be able to hold him down. But most of her fights, if she doesn't get like a back position or something like that, it's not really, there's not that much grappling going on.
Yeah, I always liked Andrea Lee. Not the biggest fan of Calvillo, and I think that the public opinion of Calvillo is kind of similar to Mackenzie Dern, kind of similar to um, Aspen Ladd, where they're good on top. They're thought as their best moments are finishing fights on top, but their striking, their footwork is choppy, their takedowns, their wrestling arsenal just isn't that deep. And I think that's another example of what we see with Calvillo here. When she does get on top of women like Botello or Pearl Gonzalez, or some of the women that she was able to finish, she does look good, but she just doesn't have a huge arsenal of takedowns. The most common takedown that she gets is typically catching a kick, like Ozzy said. Um, Now, I did have a little more concerns about Andrew Lee's bottom game than Ozzy. He sounds a little more optimistic. She has lost, in my opinion, several fights due to getting taken down in lazy fashion. The most notable one would be the Lauren Murphy fight. I think she won about 12 minutes of that fight, but she got taken down at the ends of the rounds, and those stupid judges in Texas were impressed by that, and they gave the rounds to Lauren Murphy. And I just think that she does that often. She did that versus Roxanne Matafari in the third round too. She struggled in round one versus Roxy. She adapted well, was outstriking Roxy for like 8 minutes straight. And then the last 2 minutes of round three, she gets taken down twice and ends the round on her back and loses the fight. So she can do that at times. She can put together a good round where she's pumping out volume. She has very good volume on the feet. I mean, she's always pumping out jabs and leg kicks and all types of diverse striking offense. But she just can't really keep it together for the full 5 minutes here. So it is a very concerning matchup, considering that when Lee gets on top, or when Lee ends on bottom, she could be stuck there for multiple minutes. But I think the striking advantage pretty clearly goes to Andrea Lee here. I think she's not only the more technical striker, but as I was mentioning, that volume is much better. And as long as Andrea Lee can stay off bottom here, I think that she should be good to win the fight. And I think that Calvillo's wrestling isn't good enough to get consistent takedowns here, especially to line her as a minus 135 favorite. So I think the value is on Andrea Lee here as well. I think the market could be a little low on Calvillo. It's a shame we didn't get this fight maybe a few months earlier. We could have gotten maybe plus 130 or higher on Andrea Lee. So I think the market's a little low on Calvillo. I mean, it was not less than a year ago. She was minus 235 over Caitlin Chukagian, and now we see her close odds with the Andrew Lee. So I like Lee in the spot. I'm not quite as confident as Ozzy, but I think I will end up with a bet on her at that plus money price. Anything
Yeah,
you want to?
yeah, what you say is true. Definitely there's been some spots where she's ended up on bottom, and then she goes right into a judo throw, right off of it. So there's definitely some spots where she could put herself into trouble and Cynthia can capitalize. But I think that she just has, if she quirks it a little bit and, builds off of that win against Shevchenko, which was a pretty dominant performance, I think that this girl has, she has potential to be, top five easily in this division. And I also think that both Lauren Murphy and Roxy, I'm not going to say they're way stronger than Cynthia, because obviously I've never felt them, but I just think that, both those girls are career 125, 135ers, and definitely have some physicality over Cynthia, where Cynthia, she, a lot of times girls get up and get out from under her. I feel.
Mhm.
And she kind of she's more of a finesse wrestler, where like Roxy and Lauren Murphy, they're like really gritty, and they're pushing in and they're going for underhooks and they're just trying to smash you into the clinch and stuff. Whereas Cynthia is a little bit more technique based. So, but
I
it
do
should be
agree
a
with
good
you on
fight.
that.
It should be a good fight, I think.
Yeah, Roxy's a better overall grappler than Calvillo is, and Murphy probably has better takedowns too. So, um, that those were weak moments, but I don't think they exactly necessarily translate to Calvillo having success. Even Marina Rodriguez was able to escape bottom from Calvillo.
I just
Um,
think that Andrea Lee's gonna be able to land on the feet, man. Like I just
yep.
feel that Cynthia, she tries to jab and like move her head and do, but Andrea Lee, she has very good head movement and she has good intercepting strikes. And I just hope she doesn't throw too many kicks. Like throw some head kicks, no body kicks.
She does. I think she does think too much. I think you might have mentioned that earlier. She just looks like a fighter who has a lot of like stuff going on in her ears and her head. A lot of coaches telling her different things, and she kind of overthinks in there a little bit.
Let's go, Tony
But that's
Kelly, ride this woman to victory. Come on.
oh, what are they dating now? Right,
Yeah, I think they've
Andrew.
been together for a while.
That's good stuff. We like Tony Kelly on the podcast. He's a good guy, good fighter. Next fight, last prelim fight, lightweight division. Thiago Moises as a considerable favorite, minus 248. Joel Alvarez plus 208. I don't think Alvarez is any good. I mean, most of this guy's wins, I think like all of his wins have come by submission. Most of them are, guillotines, arm bars, triangles off of low level guys. And he might be getting a little bit better. I think his striking looked slightly improved versus Joe Duffy, but I just don't see anywhere where he's going to present problems for Moises. I mean, Moises is the better striker, fought better competition, and the area where Alvarez is best at submissions, Moises is like a third degree black belt who is going to be, nearly impossible to submit. I mean, it would have to be some crazy shit for Alvarez to sub Moises here. And I just think Moises is the better fighter everywhere. More experience, better striker, can probably hit takedowns and keep top position and avoid those guard submissions with ease. So I think Moises probably covers easily here and wins a decision. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I mean, both these guys are kick heavy, especially Alvarez on the feet. I do think, Moises, some of these fight, I would assume that his game plan here is to get takedowns here, to shoot in on Alvarez. Alvarez is pretty lazy. He'll go for the choke, he'll go for the submission when he's going to his back. But on the feet, even though Moises has shown me finding high level guys that he's willing to stay in the pocket, throw counters back, and he hasn't getting blown out by anybody on the feet. It's just some of the punches that he throws, like if you're there, yeah, it'll hurt and he'll land with power. But some of these punches, like they're very short, like where you need to be in the pocket with him. And Alvarez having, I think, a 6-inch reach advantage here, I think could both hurt or help him, because sometimes when you're so tall, some of these punches, they end up, just clipping you barely on the chin. Because the height of where they're just throwing those punches, whereas a punch on a normal sized guy might hit him in like the forehead or something. So I
Seven
think,
inches of reach.
yeah, tons of reach. I think the kicks should be big for Alvarez. I think he throws pretty solid with those kicks. I just don't know his training background. I know that I do like his ground game though. That armbar he caught on Yakovlev. I don't know why more people don't go for that Fedor, Fedor style armbar. Back in my day, my first 3 amateur fights, I finished all 3 guys. I armbarred them. Similar
Did you
to
get
that.
taken down?
It was like no, it would be like scrambles. Like I'd be like one time I was like going to mount and the guy like bridge, and then right when I hit my back, I threw up an armbar, and then one of the other times like I went for like a triangle from on top and ended up on my
With the
back.
shin guards on it too, right?
Two of them with shin guards, one of them without the shin guards.
That's impressive. That makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, very very tough, very difficult. Um, but here, I mean, this price though, I mean, I'm not interested in Moises at all, just because I think that Alvarez could be able to be. Moises very confident going on the back foot and countering, and if Alvarez is able to keep him back, throw some straight kicks out there, throw some leg kicks out there, and try to proactively wrestle, I think maybe he could give Moises some issues here. I think this price is just a little too wide if I'm not confident that Moises goes in on the legs, but he is a pretty smart fighter, so I will give him the benefit of the doubt. But I think that the over here is probably the best bet for me. I don't think that Alvarez to be able to submit Moises, and I think this over or goes distance at less than a dollar fifty or less than minus 200, 150, 170 for goes distance. I think it's not bad because Alvarez, decent chin, I think, even though he has all these submissions. If you don't submit, I mean, he's not going to get a knockout. And I think that he is not going to get knocked out by Moises either. So I think the goes distance should be all right, but probably a pass fight overall for me. Unless, on the live line, maybe Alvarez gets out to a lead.
Yeah, I agree. Goes the distance under it's minus 146 on FanDuel if you have access to that. That's good. I mean, that would mean this fight finishes 40% of the time. That's wrong. Um, and one last take on this fight. I think Alvarez could be one of the worst fighters in recent memory to be on a 3-fight UFC win streak. Like for this guy to win 3 fights in the UFC in a row
Guy's
is
crafty. I don't know. I think you guys should give him. I mean, some of the stuff that he like in that fight against the Italian dude, where he like off balances him in the beginning of the end of the first round, and then puts him in the triangle, or that wrist grab. I mean, I know he's like a little noodly and weird, but the guy, he finds submissions, he finds finishes, and I think some of the transition stuff that he does is unorthodox. Although Moises is obviously more traditional and much, but Moises does dumb things too. Like you've seen the Bobby Green fight and in the Islam fight, he like gets the takedown, he's running around to the back, and he gets flipped right over the top like he's a white belt. It's very weird. So I think that there's some holes too in Thiago's game. If I'm being honest, that I think that if Alvarez is just an avalanche. Like if you let him latch onto something, this guy's strong. Didn't make weight last time, so that's another thing. Was 5 pounds off or 4 pounds off last time when they weighed in. So something to look at. But Moises should be stronger here. Should be able to push him backwards when he does go to the front foot, and he should be able to scoop up double legs pretty easily.
all right, that's going to take us on the main card. Probably the best fight on the entire card, in my opinion, in the bantamweight division. Probably the best division in the entire UFC. We got China's Song Yadong minus 145, New York City's own plus 125 on Julio Arce. Is he a Queens guy, Ozzy?
He is a Queens guy. He is a Queens guy.
Nice, nice. Well, you could start this one off then, seeing as he's a Queens
Uh,
guy.
sure. Yeah. So I mean, awesome fight here. I think Yadong has been ranked for most weeks, but I think this week is not ranked, which is usually weird. UFC usually bumps up guys when they're about to have a fight into the rankings. Another southpaw for Song to fight. Last time against Kenny looked impressive to me. Overall, was moving pretty well in that fight. Was able to stop most of the takedowns, was able to not let Kenny land too big on him, or control the fight, whether it be on the clinch or on the ground. But I think in the smaller cage, you saw a lot of movement there from Yadong, and in the smaller cage, I think it'll benefit Arce. I think the main thing that I love about Arce is one, he's moving down. He's moved down to 135. That was his natural weight for most of his career. He had like a few fights in Ring of Combat. I think specifically, I don't know if it was the first or the second Brian Kelleher fight, but I think he missed weight. If I remember from the gossip, I'm just from the New York fight scene. He like missed weight, lost decision. They were like, all right, we need a rematch because like the decision was bad, or my weight cut was bad, and he got guillotined. But after those fights, I think he felt he was just cutting too much weight, should just do 145, and he's had a lot of success there. He's lost 3 decisions. 2 of them, I think, split. I thought he won that Hakeem fight, but overall, I think him out here at 135, his cardio looked pretty good against Andre Ewell. His speed, I thought, looked good. His power definitely came down with him. And this guy's just a very diverse striker. He has a good left high kick, great jab, former Golden Gloves. I don't know if he won the Golden Gloves here in New York, but he was definitely in it. I think on more than one occasion, did very well. I've seen him spar with very good boxers as well, hold his own. He has a very educated jab, throws, and he's just, if you watch his tempo, once he gets the timing, the fight, you can see how anxious Ewell was, because Arce just completely turned on the whole fight, where every time Andre would throw, Arce would be able to land a counter shot. And you saw that in that last left hand that he landed when he stunned him. It was a perfect counter over the top left hand. The angles that I think that Arce takes, and Yadong, a lot of times, some of these punches that he's thrown in, doesn't have too much on the jab on the left hand side, and then I think kick wise, I think Arce should be able to use them. And then if he ever does grapple, Arce very high level black belt on the ground. I think that clinch takedowns are probably the most likely outcome for him if he does get this to the mat. But Yadong, you saw in the end of the third round against Kenny, flat on his back there, right there at the end. I think Arce, if he does get on top of him, he's going to land some very, very good ground and pound. I know this guy has legit ground and pound. I think he'll be able to advance position on Song Yadong, and I do not think that a finish is out of the question if he is able to get on top. So I think Arce here stays behind his guard, very educated when he is jabbing, when he is throwing his cross to roll, keep one hand high, or the offside guarded. Yadong opposite. He'll throw from his hips. He'll throw the right cross, and he'll bring the left hand from his pocket. So I think that Arce should be able to close the door on some combinations, out volume Song, and hopefully win a decision. But if he can get this to the mat, I do like him to potentially find a finish.
Song is a hell of an athlete, and I think he is a good fighter. I think he uses his attributes pretty well. I just don't think that there's a whole lot of high level thinking and adaptations going on when he's in the middle of a fight. Meanwhile, you have Arce, who obviously gave a detailed background of him, former Golden Gloves, but this guy has a deep amateur MMA background, and he also has 10, 12 fights in the PA, New York, New Jersey regional scene, and has been facing like good competition for well over a decade straight. And I just think it really speaks in his fights. The guy can adapt well. He can make mid fight reads. Even when he's, getting hurt, getting dropped by Shimon Moraes, he's able to get on a back take and make that fight extremely close. And even in the past, 5, 6 years, he's only lost 2 fights. And both of them were against, big skilled strikers at 145. And they were both split decision losses. So he made both fights close. And I just think that it's, extremely hard to blow Arce out of the water. I mean, even those fights that he lost, like I just mentioned, the Dawodu and Moraes fights, did Moraes and Dawodu look minus 145? I'm not really sure, honestly. So I think having Song, who is, mostly an athletically reliant fighter, as the favorite over Arce, it is wrong, honestly. I think that Arce is just a more diverse, educated fighter who's going to be able to make more in-fight reads. And I think he's the better grappler than Yadong as well. I think that he could be getting a takedown here, maybe get some back take time. As Ozzy mentioned, Yadong doesn't do too well off of his back. And I think the fight could just look similar to the Marlon Vera fight against Yadong, where I just think Arce is going to be putting some pressure on him, getting him on the back foot, getting him a little uncomfortable, and just mixing up his striking from that southpaw stance, to the head, to the body, to the leg. And I think we're going to see Arce show his deeper arsenal on the ground, on the feet, and just show that he's the more educated, experienced fighter and win this fight probably by decision, honestly. So I like Arce here as well. Already bet him plus 135, and I'm looking to make it, maybe a little bit more. Let's see where this line goes. Hopefully the money keeps coming in on Song Yadong. If you guys are interested in betting Arce as well, I would say just wait till the day of the fight. Hopefully that Yadong money comes in, maybe some China money comes in, and we get a better price on Arce. So we're in agreement with that one, and it's going to move us on to the next fight. Another incredible fight, welterweight division. Miguel Baeza coming off of his first loss as a professional, minus 135, taking on Chaos-Williams, plus 115. I guess I'll start this one off. Just want to give credit to Baeza off the rip for his fight against Ponzinibbio. I think that is the best fight all year. I know we've had a lot of incredible fights, but just rewatching that one today, incredible fight. All 3 rounds were competitive, high action. And even though Baez lost that fight, I still think his stock rose a lot there. I mean, we had some questions about Baeza, his durability. We saw him get rocked by Matt Brown. We saw his chin improve. We saw, pretty much everything improve. So I think Baeza's good. I think the guy has potential. And Williams was kind of high-rolled his entire MMA career off of 2 quick knockouts. And I think he's kind of been, a little exposed in his past 2 fights, as if he can't get that early round 1 knockout, that touch of death power like he did on Razak and Morono, then the guy isn't too skilled of a fighter. We saw him struggle against Pereira getting taken down there. His volume isn't that great. And in the Semmelsberger fight, I just saw him spamming, 3 or 4 hard punch combinations at Semmelsberger. It just didn't seem like he had good shot selection. It didn't seem like he really thought about where the punches were going. He was just hitting as hard as he could. And, the dumbass judges saw him swinging hard and punching the arms of Semmelsberger, and they thought that he won that fight. But I didn't. I saw Semmelsberger counterpunching. I saw him outboxing Williams, and I thought that honestly Williams lost his last fight, lost his past 2 fights, honestly. So I think that I give the advantage to Baeza here. I do lean him at this price, especially. I think you could be getting a little bit of a generous price on Baeza, especially considering Baeza's defense. His chin looked better in the last fight. You got to think that the biggest concern is Williams comes out and rocks him and knocks him out in round 1. But the longer the fight goes, I think it favors Baeza. I like Baeza's leg kicks. The guy smashes that calf. He can hit takedowns and keep top position. We saw that on Sato. He was able to submit him. And Williams has been taken down in the regionals. He got taken down by Pereira, as I mentioned. So the striking could be close here. But when you add in that leg kick, when you add in the grappling advantage for Baeza, I think he does have a pretty comfortable advantage here. So I would cap Baeza honestly minus 170, minus 190 here. So I think the line could be a bit short and there could be some value on Baeza. So interested to see your thoughts on this one, Ozzy. What are you thinking about this one?
Real interesting fight here between two good welterweight prospects, that have fought good competition now to this point. Williams, how he comes in, he's blitzing in, he's throwing, 2-1-2s, 1-2-1s, straight punches, and then, maybe a loopy shot every now and then, and looks to get off on you, just in quick succession, off of counters or off the, timing, when he wants to go. He's not much of a counter fighter. He's not much of like a guy who's gonna like move off to an angle, and land a punch on you. It's more of a blitzing attack. This guy's super strong. And I think that Baeza, there are opportunities for a guy like Chaos to land on him. In some of these exchanges, if you see Baeza, he did catch a lot of punches, or he does catch a lot of punches with like that high guard that he throws up, and he doesn't exactly shoulder roll, but he kind of like turns and gets those high hands to his guard, and is moving with punches a lot. But a lot of times there, you're kind of giving up one side if the um guy that you're fighting is cognizant of the next opportunity that comes. But the thing with Chaos is he's not really, to me, he doesn't aim his punches very well. He just kind of like blitzing them out there, like he says. Semmelsberger blocked a lot of them on his arms, and then after that initial success that I feel Chaos had, I think Semmelsberger, after a while was like, oh, okay, like, I can get hit by this guy and not fall down. And he started getting, more confident. You see in that third round, even, and maybe in that second half of the third round, he's kind of like saying like, oh, come on, let's go, let's fight. But it was like a little bit too little too late, even though I was on Matt there. So, I think, like you said, Baeza can shoot in on the legs. If he does get it to the ground, he for sure has a distinct advantage. The submission prop on Baeza is likely sharp, because if there is a takedown that occurs or any kind of scramble, I feel that Chaos will just ejecto Cito. Like, he'll just try to get up, with like giving his back, giving up bad positioning, and Baeza will look to capitalize from there. And both these guys have been in some wars, so I'm really curious to see it. I think that Baeza should be, if he's smart, he'll try to time a takedown eventually. Chaos did look like he did not like too many leg kicks when either, I don't know if it was in the Pereira fight or the Semmelsberger fight, one of them hit him in the calf, and he didn't look like he liked it too much. So I think it'll be a good scrap. I think Chaos does have some skills, but overall, Baeza, I think, is the rightful favorite. If he does not get connected clean on the chin, I think he should pull away with this fight late, just with the leg kicks, body kicks, and hopefully takedowns accumulating. But I wouldn't be surprised to seeing also like this fight being a little more boring, where maybe it's Chaos, maybe getting hit a little bit on the outside early and then looking to clinch, and push Baeza back and hold him against the fence. And I don't think Baeza is a great submission hunter in terms of like guillotines or from his back. So and he is a little he's not thin, but Chaos is definitely, I would say, a stronger guy. So I wouldn't be surprised at seeing Chaos, like, I don't know, maybe try to mix in a takedown, here or there. But he's mostly just punches and not much else. So but there is respected money that I know on Chaos-Williams for what it's worth.
Interesting. That's going to move us along to the next fight, women's featherweight division, probably the best division in the UFC. Cancel what I said earlier about men's bantamweight. That dwells in comparison to women's featherweight, where we have Felicia Spencer at minus 315. Did you guys hear that right? Felicia Spencer at minus 315, Leah Letson plus 255. You can start your thoughts out on this one. It's your turn to go.
Sir, coming off that fight against Dumont, where she just accomplished nothing in that fight, didn't even finish a takedown overall. The takedown that she got on Dumont in the end of the third round was Dumont basically falling over off a judo trip. And the thing with Spencer is she's just incredibly slow. I think she's looking for ideas when she's fighting because she knows that she's outmatched a lot of times. So in that Dumont fight, she's like switching to southpaw. She's like throwing these karate kicks that are very, very slow and gets her punched in the face a few times. And there's just not a lot of good content or substance in her game. Her hands are slow. She has no power. She doesn't have overwhelming cardio or pace. I'm hearing her interviews during the media week. She's saying like, my head wasn't there during the fight, yada yada yada. All these things, just bad signs. I don't think that she should have ever been favored over most of these girls. To be honest, and even when she does get fights to the ground, if she is able to find a dominant position, yes, she could progress it. But these girls that she's doing it against are very, very bad. They're just not good fighters. And you saw when she was on top against Dumont, did not accomplish anything. I don't think she passed her guard at all. And then when she was on her back, she's like, fishing for a Kimura or, not doing anything very well from her back. Letson, she was on the Ultimate Fighter like 3 years ago, fought Bia Malecki there.
Legendary bet.
Legendary Bia Malecki, the no face filler anymore, Bia Malecki.
Me and Ozzy follow the career of Bia Malecki very closely.
No, that she's done. But what was I saying? She almost got rear naked choked by Bia Malecki. But overall, I think that this girl is a southpaw, has a good left hand, has not good hand speed, just decent hand speed for a division. Has educated left hand. If you've seen that in she channels her inner Crow Cop, which some people that listen to this podcast probably don't even know who Crow Cop is, which is just incredibly sad. But she throws out that double attack. She comes out with that left and then binks her with that left high kick, which was pretty nice. So I think overall, if Spencer, like, she doesn't have any leg attacks for takedowns, so she's gonna have to get this to the clinch. Letson, I don't think is that bad of a grappler. She's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She moves pretty well. She's not the dumbest on the mat. She like, I think if she ends up on her back, I don't think this is over. And I think if they're scrambling, I think that she makes actually good decisions overall. And then if this is on the feet, I think she should piece Spencer up. I don't think Spencer's ever fought against a southpaw. She doesn't deal with kicks well at all. She turns away from punches. She has no jab. She has no counters. So I don't see how this is. If you guys don't understand what I'm saying, like how this is a minus 300, is a plus 260 on Leah. So it's definitely a bet for me, probably a multi-unit bet overall. I wouldn't be surprised if this closed like under like 210, I would say, maybe 200, because it just, I mean, Spencer's what, 2-4 in decisions. I think I had pulled up here. What's her record? It's a terrible record in decisions. And what do you expect that she's definitely going to submit Leah? Yeah, she's 2-3 in decisions. Terrible record there. Just has a bigger name. Casuals are betting her, or casuals set the line and they don't know or watch Leah, I guess. Leah's been out a ton of time. But I think that she has a very good chance to get her second UFC win here against Felicia Spencer.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it might be a little concerning. Leah, 3-year layoff, only 5 or 6 fights in her MMA career, honestly. But when you watch the tape, I mean, I don't think that Leah is that bad. Watching her tough fights, I see her coming forward. She seems to have a concept of pressuring. She knows how to pump out volume. She's a southpaw for one, and I feel like Spencer just hasn't faced many southpaws. Like, do you really think that like she's boxed and sparred striking against
No,
many
not
southpaws?
one.
Because I don't.
Maybe
I
one.
don't.
Maybe
Yeah,
one. Maybe they
maybe
brought
one.
in one. Maybe they bring in one. They're in Florida, so
Um, and she comes from that taekwondo background, and she can throw out some flashy kicks. I'm talking about Spencer now. Some like spinning kicks and bullshit like that. But the woman can't box. She really has no idea how to throw a punch. And I think when the fight is on the feet, as I said in my tweet earlier today, that 26 people like, shout out to all you, that Lee Letson's going to give her a southpaw boxing lesson when this fight is on the feet. It really becomes a matter of um, Letson stop the takedowns. And considering that Felicia Spencer, one, doesn't attempt a whole lot of takedowns, two, isn't that good of a wrestler, I think you got to side with the dog here, maybe even as like a straight up pick. Like, I mean, who really cares about picks? All we're talking about is bets. But I mean, she's definitely worth a bet at plus 255 because she's the favorite on the feet, in my opinion. It all comes down to takedown defense. And when I see Felicia shooting takedowns, she shoots some slow double leg. If that doesn't work, she goes up to the body lock and tries to hit a body lock clinch. And even Zara Farron was able to stuff one or two of her takedown attempts before getting taken down. So, like Ozzy said, she's a purple belt on the ground. She's been training this entire time when she's been off. Had a few canceled fights back in 2019. I just think, all the stars are kind of aligning here. We're getting a gift of a line on Leah Letson, plus 265, something like that now.
decision plus 400. I mean,
Yeah.
the fight is the over 2.5 is minus 240, and like I told you, Felicia Spencer's record in decisions is 2-3.
And the odds have her at basically her winning 4 out of 5 decisions. That would be basically right.
I'm all
Or
over Leah. I'm all
yeah,
over Leah. I
yeah.
mean, it could be, Leah trains with like a really small gym, but her ass whooped basically by, just having a more high profile fights. So, yeah, I mean, she's 1-3 in her last 4 fights, and the losses to Zara Aaron. Like,
The
I mean,
win, yeah. The win.
or the
I
win,
mean,
yeah,
she does deserve a little bit of slack fighting Cyborg and Nunes,
yeah, but
and Dumont on us. I mean, all three of those women would stomp Letson to bits and pieces, but still, it's what she showed. It's not even. I think you can throw those 3 fights out of the window. Maybe Norma is the only moderately relevant one, but I mean, even in the fights that she won, I think she's shown a lot of concerns, and I just think that outside of getting some really easy takedown in top position here, I just don't see any way she's gonna look minus 300.
3-1 is crazy. Minus
Yeah,
300 is crazy. It's just legitimately crazy because, like I said, like if she get, can you depend on her to get a takedown every round? And I mean, her cardio doesn't look good. She's slow. Like she's never
very
like
slow.
she's never shown a really good. I mean, every time that she was coming into the space of Dumont, it was looking like she didn't think that Dumont was allowed to hit her. Like there was no defensive movement, from this girl. I don't know. I think that, and that's only 6 months ago. I think Leah's gonna whip her ass. So
Yep. Southpaw boxing lesson plus 255. Book
plus
your
two
action
fifty
now.
five. Plus 255.
Um,
If it loses, if it loses, don't be mad. It's plus 255.
Speaking of plus 255, next fight is in the heavyweight division, co-main event. The year is 2021, and this is the co-main event of a UFC fight night. We have Ben Rothwell as the minus 172 favorite, Marcus Rogerio de Lima plus 147. And I'm seeing a few people on Lima in this spot, and I get betting against Rothwell plus money. That does seem it's not a hard bet to make to bet against Rothwell at plus money, because the guy does seem to be depleting, looking possibly worse and worse in each fight. But the guy did just finish Chris Barnett, who we all know is a generational talent at this point. But going back and rewatching that Rothwell fight against Barnett, I still think the guy is there enough to to win this fight against De-Lima, honestly. If you look at De-Lima's past 3 wins, I think all of them have come by getting takedowns, getting some top time, besides the Ben Sassoli knockout, who he knocked out in like 90 seconds. But a lot of his fights come from getting getting a takedown and getting some top position that he can keep for a long period of time. Ben Rothwell has a lot better takedown defense than the guys that De-Lima has been out wrestling. And if the fight stays in the feet, sure, De-Lima has a small chance to crack him. I mean, De-Lima does swing big, hard punches, but the amount of footage of Rothwell has striking is just so much more. I mean, the guy has a lot of footage in the UFC recently that you just can't really point to for De-Lima. And the last thing I'll say is De-Lima or Rothwell has only been taken down 1 time in the past 8 years, spanning across 10 fights, spanning across almost 2 hours of UFC fight time. He hasn't been finished in like 10 years or something like that. So if you're betting De-Lima here, take De-Lima by decision. I think I actually will end up on this bet. A plus 500 for De-Lima by decision. I think that's off. I think the goes the distance in general here at plus 150 is off. That could be even money for all I care. So I lean Ben Rothwell. Definitely not going to be betting his money line. And I think I'll be on De-Lima by decision, honestly.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is my least favorite fight on the card overall. I know Lima smashed Maurice Green. I mean, Maurice Green just a clown. Like, just wasn't trying. I mean, sorry to say, I don't like saying that, but just wasn't trying to get up at all. Like, doesn't dig an underhook at all. I thought that he came into that fight 13 pounds lighter than the Greg Hardy fight. But just looked just as slow, which is an impressive feat. De Lima, on the other hand, he been getting up there in weight. He was like 150, 258, 255. Last fight 65.
265, you're saying?
Definitely cut weight to make that limit. Has not really fought a guy like Ben Rothwell. Like Ben Rothwell, even though you could make fun of him and all this kind of stuff. Like Ben Sassoli, Adam Poland,
Which we'll check, yeah.
and Maurice Green, they're different beasts than in the bad way than Ben Rothwell. Rothwell 40, the king of Kenosha, as they call him. Kyle what's this kid's name?
Oh, no, don't even.
What the fuck is that kid's name, dude?
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse, eat your heart out, bro. If fucking Ben Rothwell was out there that day, I don't think we would have needed many Kyles, but I don't know what Ben was doing that day, man.
Oh, man.
He should have kept Kenosha on lock. But anyway, no beef, Ben. Don't come after me. But Ben, overall, I think he goes the distance often. De-Lima, just questionable cardio. I think he's gonna have to be ripping off leg kicks on Ben. To be honest, is I think his best is one tool he definitely needs to use. But I think that Ben can just like throw that jab out, throw those right hands out, smother a guy like De-Lima. De-Lima's just I hate to say it because we share a birthday, but this guy he kind of starts panicking sometimes. Like when he's in there, there's a reason he's been submitted so many times. Guillotines, Von Flues, arm triangles from Stefan Struve, fucking forearm chokes. This is not a guy you could trust. Although, it's a plus number, I get it. And you don't want to bet Rothwell because you think that all OSP hurt him, this or that. I mean, OSP, that was peak COVID time, first of all. Second, OSP does get some decent angles on the feet. Like he moves around not bad. And I think the time that he hurt Ben, he was off to the side of him and, landed, a big punch or two overall. And Tybura is just a tank at heavyweight. Like he's just a skilled guy. I think he took Ben down eventually, or I don't know, started putting him in the clinch. But De-Lima just does not have a connected.
Hold up. It does seem like De-Lima is training at ATT, which could be beneficial for him. But were you saying finish that up?
What was I saying? Yes, he's at ATT, but I just think he wilts under the pressure. And I think if Ben Rothwell elongates this fight at all and comes with his normal pressure, I think that he should be able to eat the punches of De-Lima and then stop him towards the later portion of the fight. But not a confident pick. Action coming in on Rothwell now. I would need minus 130 to play Rothwell.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna be getting there, but like I said, I don't have much faith in Rothwell, but I think I'm going to be betting that decision line just because I think that's off. That's going to take us to the main event. In the featherweight division, we have Max Holloway, gigantic favorite, minus 800. Yair Rodriguez, plus 500. You could start this one off, Ozzy.
I mean, it's crazy. Max was minus 150 in his Cater fight, and he's minus 800 here. Yeah, Yair, it's been forever since I saw the guy. I didn't remember him that well. I think what was his last fight was the Korean Zombie fight, right? Or no, the Jeremy Stevens fight. But that was not much of a fight. But I mean, he has good body kicks. The thing is, though, he needs space to operate. He runs away a lot. Like if you look at the end of the chance, he's running away. He doesn't keep position in the pocket very well. I think that Max here should be able to find a head kick on this guy. What can you say about Max Holloway? One of the best fighters to ever grace the sport. One of the best action fighters to ever come into the sport. Every fight of his, he's bringing the heat. He's bringing, damage. Nonstop volume. And a well-rounded game. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw, some ground here where, maybe he drops Yair at some point, and comes on top of him and tries to finish him off there. I think that Holloway should probably mix in some kicks here, because when you are fighting a guy like Yair, who's a very, very competent kicker, you got to kick with the kicks back on your script. So I think that Max here probably looks to mix up between orthodox and southpaw to stifle the body kicks of Yair. Finds his jab and makes it look like a Max Holloway fight. I would probably favor it to. I mean, I know people are saying, "Hey, this is gonna." Maybe get a finish, but Yair moves very, very well, is pretty slick in there. And I do think that, he's always alive to also land a big shot. Although I would probably favor it to go, into a later fight. I wouldn't be surprised at Max jumping on this guy super early, finding a way to stun him, club and sub, or just a straight KO. But Yair is very, very tough. But there's only one way that I could bet this fight, and it would be Max Holloway, but the price is crazy. So I will just enjoy this. I will not have $1 on it in any capacity. And I'll let other people try to squeeze value out of this fight some way, somehow. Maybe you can help me.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely no bets that are jumping off the page as appealing to me here. Yair has had a funny career. I mean, to think that this guy beat Dan Hooker, Andre Fili, Alex Caceres, and like he's still kind of thought of as like not that good, I mean, if those, I would like to see some of those rematches, like Andre Fili versus Yair in 2021 or next year would be pretty fun, honestly. I would pick Fili pretty confidently. But looking at Yair's most three recent fights, excluding that one stupid Jeremy Stevens fight, I mean, he's suffered or struggled in a lot of those fights. I mean, he was dominated by Frankie Edgar, smashed with ground and pound there, was on his way to losing a decision versus Jung. Very underwhelming fight. They just stood at range and kind of stared at each other the entire time. It exchanged the occasional strike, but underwhelming fight. And then he did win the first 2 rounds against Jeremy Stevens, but round 3, I mean, he was getting whooped on in round 3. Debatable 10-8 round for Jeremy Stevens, and Jeremy got screwed in that fight. First fight was supposed to be 5 rounds in Mexico. He probably would have finished Yair in rounds 4 and 5 in that fight in Mexico, but instead got moved to a 3-round fight, and Yair was able to win that one by decision. So unfortunate luck for our boy Jeremy Stevens. Getting over to this matchup, as Ozzy said, one of the best fighters of all time. I mean, he definitely should be in your top 10 of all time. Max Holloway is a special talent, and the guy is not even 30 fucking years old yet left. So hopefully we got a few good years left of his career. I mean, that's honestly one of the craziest things, craziest statistics or facts you can give about MMA. Max Holloway is not 30 years old yet. And, I think round 1 should be a little slow. Yair's going to be using that movement, using a lot of energy, trying to get his jumping, spinning, flying head kicks going. But unless he lands that flying, jumping, spinning head kick on Max Holloway, I don't see a way that he's going to win the fight. By round 2 and 3, Max is going to be picking up the pace, putting a beating on him, just outboxing the shit out of Yair. Yair can kick on the outside, but the man cannot box. He really gets hit a lot in the pocket, and Max is probably just going to have target practice This fight is that the dude rips to the body. You know, he can drain that gas tank. He might get a knockdown. He can snatch a submission. The dude guillotine Cub Swanson
Andre
back in the
Feely.
day. I was at that fight. Yeah, yeah, you were probably at that fight too when he choked out Cub Swanson. And yeah, that was the night where Vellante knocked out Anderson. So
Oh,
you
okay,
definitely
yeah, I definitely
um
was.
that fucking that reasoning last week though did not come through and help us,
No,
unfortunately. But
no.
whatever. Chris Barnett, was there to spoil the show. But
I told people to be careful. I said, hey, this guy not trustworthy. John Vellante at Juice. Everybody.
yeah, bad moment for it. Bad moment for Italian Americans. So I'm leaning for a round 3 or 4 finish here. I just think the pace and pressure, the output, everything of Max Holloway is going to be too much, and he's going to get Yair out of there. It sounds like you're leaning a little bit towards like 4-5 decision. And what is like your
Yeah, I
official
mean, I
pick
know
here?
that's a very trendy pick. And you see, like, you speaking, just like putting a lot of contextualized, like, all right, like Max going to the body. I would probably think that Max gets a finish here. Like, I think this guy, he's talking about these boxing, like, which could be a bad sign where he's talking about like bigger opportunities. But I mean, to get these big opportunities, you got to put on big performances. Like what they said, the UFC, like you're an independent contractor. Most of the ways people make money is they find, they use their star spotlight to get better opportunities. And the way you do that is putting on exciting fights and knocking dudes the fuck out. Yair is a tough dude like Cater was. But I guess, yeah, I think Max probably, I think he's a put the pedal to try and finish it. So
I mean,
I'll
going
pick
back to the
Max by
Cater fight,
finish.
go ahead. Going back to the Cater fight, like I thought Max was gonna finish that like halfway through. Like I was like, okay, I bet goes the distance in that fight. And I was like, I was like subtracting it from the spreadsheet in like the second and third round, and like it just kept going and kept going. And I mean, I think 99% of the roster of the featherweights would have gotten knocked out in that fight. So I do lean to finish rounds 3 and 4. I kind of hope it's a submission just for something different. Like you said, he drops him and then snatches on a sub or something. That would be fun
Also,
to see.
one more thing to point out. Max never has fought in the small cage. This is in the small cage. Same thing for Yair. So I don't think that bodes well for Yair
No,
Rodriguez. I
nowhere
don't
to
think
go,
so.
nowhere to escape.
Nowhere to go,
Um,
boy.
but yeah, Holloway decision here is plus 100. I don't know. I think that could be higher. I mean, it's going to be a long 25 minutes if you're
That's a
betting.
sweaty. Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, if you're betting 25 minutes at even money for Yair to make it, I don't know about that. So I'll go round 4 submission or something. Um,
I'll go round 2
But
finish
I don't
for
know
for
about you, but I always feel like the main events, like whenever we think
Yo,
there's gonna be a finish, they go yeah, like conceptually they just last longer for some reason. Maybe the refs have more leniency with stopping it.
Mexican guy. I'm sure he's been training hard. Like they've been scheduled to fight for a long time. So I hope Yair comes a fight. Maybe gives us a live line, but I doubt
Yeah,
it.
me too, me too. All right, that's gonna do it for the podcast. 11 fights. We went a little long this week, but we told you we were gonna, and some fun fights to analyze. Not the highest level contests, but definitely some strong leans on a few of these fights. You can tell which ones those are, and let's hope our boys come through. My boys this week are going to be Da-Un-Jung, and Julio Arce. Oh, and Lee Letson. And let's do this parlay you were talking about. So what you pick one leg?
Pick
And
one leg.
which
I pick one leg. It could be a money line or a total.
All right, I'm going with my
Whatever.
boy Da-Un-Jung money line.
Okay, so you got Da Ung Jung. I'm gonna give the people. So we're gonna give the people a Da Ung Jung, and it's either Andrea Lee or Julio Arce. So I'll let you pick on the second leg of it.
No,
Which one
I
you?
picked mine. You got to pick
Okay,
yours.
you're right. You're right. I gotta not be a coward. So we're gonna do Andrea Lee, Ung Jung parlay for those that want to follow are two, just confident picks for this week. But if you're feeling spicy, maybe you mix in Arce
Maybe
instead.
add
If you
ours.
like
Yeah,
if you like Arce instead more, I think I like him as well. I just think there's good value in the matchup, value in the number, and I think this spot for both of these guys and gals is a step up for them that they're very ready to take.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So that's going to do it for the podcast this week. I believe we're going to be right back next week. Yep, card next week. So hope you all enjoy the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Apologize for any slight audio issues, but I don't think there were too many. And thanks for showing support. Hit like, hit subscribe. Make sure you're following on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure you're retweeting on Twitter. And we appreciate all the support. And we hope you're all winning some bets along with the podcast. So we will see you all before next week. Peace.